It was one of the things that, where I hit a frustrating ceiling in my, conventional career. Because I realized I was hitting this point of like, oh, it's like there is no next job that's like, oh, you're going to learn this new thing and build this new thing. And I was like, oh, I'm practicing. Oh, that's a job. I'm like, I don't want to practice this. I want to do more and do new. And that fire from sort of it being, I guess, like in my early 20s or 20 and being like, okay, I'm like, there's always a way to find how to sort of make the path what you want it to be. It's not always the easiest path, I've also learned, um, but yeah, I'm still driven by making. When I get really bored at a job, all of a sudden there's like 8 house projects that have to get done. Because yeah, it's like if I'm not, making, I just get antsy.
John and I have known each other since the days when Ben Affleck was just a kid on the voyage of the Mimi, and Oregon Trail counted as educational computer time. We passed our fair share of notes back then. But in this conversation, we're talking about what happens after, when you're in the prime of your career, poised to win yet another prestigious pie eating contest, and you decide that you'd rather build something of your own, even if you're an old founder who still feels Perma 20. We talk about raising kids in a divergent family and finding ways to spend time together, apart, about doing the work even when you're not sure it will succeed, about the patience that comes when you realize it's not always about milestones. Sometimes it's just about being present for the long days and fast years. Off we go. Enjoy. Jon Zweifler, hello,
Hello,
welcome.
hello, Miss Tucker.
It's been a little while since we last saw each other,
Couple decades, nothing
couple
crazy.
decades.
Yeah.
But when I was thinking about folks to reach out to, it felt like, the longer, the better.
Yeah.
Just jump right in.
We got more stories to tell now for sure.
That's right. Well, speaking of stories, I want to sort of like acknowledge the time frame that we're thinking about
Mm,
here. Class of 2001, so our college graduation year. I know you and I had a class of 93 middle school graduation year, so
correct.
maybe we'll go back and forth. But I'm really curious, like before I reached out, were you thinking about it being 25 years since college?
No. I'm sort of perpetually always in like, oh, that was like 7 or 8 years ago. Just like the 90s were just like 7 or 8 years ago. Yeah, no, it's bizarre about the people that you grow up with, and then you grow up and you see them on like their socials, or oh, they did this cool post or got this cool job, and yeah, in my mind's eye, we're not eighth graders, but it's just like we're we're not grown-ups.
Well, because I feel like that is a very common phenomenon. So if you think about that earlier version, is there a suspension age where you're sort of like, I am X years old, but I feel
I would say I'm like perma 20. um, yeah, and I've been hitting up against that reality check a lot in the last couple of years, because I am decided to be a an old founder, and I at least once a week I'm like, see, a man's game. I'm like, I'm pretending like I'm 25, and that is not real.
well, you talk about founders. I mean, my stepmom actually literally this morning just sent something from Montclair. Don Katz founded Audible at like 42,
All right, I love those stories. I'm just going to keep
right?
riding those. Get me out of bed every morning.
That's right. Julia Child, I think she was in her 40s or 50s. Martha Stewart. So, you're in good
We're
company.
just getting started, Era. We're just getting started.
You are just getting started. I mean, does Perma 20, does that harken back to any like concrete sensory memories or what's the
I think the one thing I've been glad to hold on to, even as the years tick by, is I always sort of hacked the academic system, in that it's like I wasn't a typical learner. I wasn't super motivated. I was like C plus. That's I'm like that's satisfactory plus. Like, um, but the thing that always did motivate me was making things, creating things. It's like I gravitated to photography and just like things that I could get my. This was back when you could get your hands dirty in photography, um, and the doing of things versus the practicing of things. And um, the I managed to sort of finagle my way into the college I wanted to go to, with the laser mission of like, oh, this is going to be the first time I get to sort of study and engage in what I want, not, sort of like what is the core curriculum and whatnot. Um, and ever since then, it's like once I was able to sort of light that fire of like, okay, it's like I can chart my path, in pursuit of making things and creating things. That fire is still very much strong. It was one of the things that, where I hit a frustrating ceiling in my, conventional career. Because I realized I was hitting this point of like, oh, it's like there is no next job that's like, oh, you're going to learn this new thing and build this new thing. I was like, oh, I'm practicing. Oh, that's a job. I'm like, I don't want to practice this. I want to do more and do new. And that fire from sort of it being, I guess, like in my early 20s or 20 and being like, okay, I'm like, there's always a way to find how to sort of make the path what you want it to be. It's not always the easiest path. I've also learned, um, but yeah, the I'm still driven by making. When I get really bored at a job, all of a sudden there's like 8 house projects that have to get done. Because yeah, it's like if I'm not, making, I just get antsy. I'm like, what are we doing here?
I love that because I don't know. When you were talking, I just flashed back to like band. Um,
Oh boy.
don't worry. But I remember, I mean, I was hopeless. I played flute for like 2 minutes, but this idea of like practice versus feeling like you are actively playing a part in like reshaping or making something
Hmm.
new. Is that something that you thought adulthood was going to unlock? Or did you always know you were going to have to finagle?
um, I think I hoped it would unlock, but at a certain point, I I just sort of wanted to assume agency in that, acknowledging that I didn't know if the path was going to end up, or that journey was going to end up where I hoped it would. Um, but I sort of just started defaulting to uh, this is the only sort of motivating way forward, or it's like it's the only it's the only pursuit I could get energized around. So sort of like, okay, I got really used to like, oh, that's not the way you're supposed to do that, or you're supposed to do this first, or da, 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 and just being like, yeah, um, a bit of that, as my dad would say, contrarian mentality, which again is doesn't always make for the easiest path, but um, yeah, I need that. It's not like, oh, I don't like following the rules or but I was talking to somebody about the book Breakfast of Champions a couple weeks ago, um, because I realized one of the things that I loved about that book, although like Monaghan's great, I'll read anything he writes, living or dead. But there's this like outlaw mentality that's baked into that, and it's not like burning down the world for the sake of burning down the world, but just sort of saying like, hey, you know um, there are conventions, there are orthodoxies, there are givens. Some of them are good, but a lot of them just don't sort of get questioned or pushed up against, because it's like, oh no, that's the way it is. And I just like I tense up when it's just sort of like, well, that's the way it is, and I'm like, okay, I'm like, I'm going to try that path. Thank you.
You're out. You're out.
Yeah.
So if that's sort of the alternate path, and we'll get more into your path, but like, what was the story that you were taught to believe about adulthood?
Um, oh, that's a great question. So I think the expectations were you you went to school and education was really important in our family. Um, you you did what it's like you got whatever support was needed to perform there so that you could go to the right school, get on the right professional path, um, and basically prepare yourself for that ideal American life, right? Like, so it's like, oh, you can you go and work in a city, and then you move out of the city, and then you move into a house, and then you it's like, oh, you do go, are the schools good? Are you going to send your kids to private school? Like and I'm not knocking any of that. The I think the thing that, yeah, it's just like my instinct is always sort of like, oh, okay, that's the path. What else? What else is there? And I'm extremely fortunate and privileged because the thing that my parents always prioritized, for me and my brother, was travel, like wherever possible. My mom was Canadian, not like that's like exotic, but we at a very young age were used to like, oh, you get on a plane and you go through customs, um, and the major things in my family's sort of like annual rituals were always going somewhere. And my brother, who's almost 8 years older than me, he obviously graduated college while I was still at home, and moved to Jakarta, Indonesia. He was in the first Bush recession graduating class, and he was a copy editor at their newspaper. And I'm like 15, and he's like, "Hey, you should come out and do an internship." He's like, "I'll figure something out." And I like looked at my mom, who was like, "Oh, really? Do you think you could get that for him?" And I was like, "Wow, all right." And so I'm like, I'm 15, I'm in Jakarta, I'm living with like a bunch of young 20-year olds who at that time I was like, wow, these are like real grown ups. They're like 23, and going into this office, and long story short is like I'm 15 years old, and I was able to get published as a photojournalist for the first time. And for better or worse, that sort of set off the like, okay, there's lots of different ways to accomplish what you want to. I'm also sort of inherently a very impatient person when I'm motivated, so that also kicked off some positive and negative traits for the coming decades of like, come on, let's go do it now. We don't like, I don't have to graduate. Let's just go do that. And it's like, yeah, no, you need to graduate. Um, but but yeah, I mean, again, like they're the vast majority of people take the path that's before them, and it's a wonderful path, and they live amazing and rewarding lives. There is almost like the metaphor I would say is like a travel bug mentality of like, for me, where it's I don't dismiss the path that's ahead of me, but I before I start going down too far, I'm always like, I wonder if there's an interesting path over there. Like, where's the Jakarta path in this?
And so for you, it sounds like, well, one, you get bored, right, and you move. Have there ever been times when you've been burnt out and you learned something from that this idea of ambition or the path before you like couldn't teach you, like, but you only could learn it because you were burnt out?
Oh gosh, I've been burnt out so many times. Everything I just described is like a surefire recipe for burnout at least once a decade. Um, I would say most recently, well, no, I mean, every time, and maybe this is like a self fulfilling trait of mine, but I remember I started out in advertising back when that was an industry, and when that was a thing. And you ever seen Mad Men? It's exactly like that. Um, and it was like 2001, 2007, the iPhone comes out. That's when sort of the deck chairs really start to get rearranged on the Titanic. And I'm like, okay, uh, advertising is notorious, like a lot of industries, not that different from big law, from back in your earlier days, where it's a pie eating contest, and the prize for winning is more pie. It's just that there's no end in sight. It's very Sisyphus, and I was making stuff, which was like a big, checked a huge box for me. I was working with great people, but I was like, getting on just like unhealthily out of shape. I was always tired. Um, Always, the notion of working 6 days a week was like, yeah, of course, like let's try to get that Sunday off, um, and the only path to advancement was to, just like taking on more. And I was burning out, like, because I couldn't see that other path. I was like, shit, oh, I'm on the path, that one ding ding path. Um, and, I was like, okay, it's time for me to start thinking about, it's like, what is the next way for me to be making stuff or creating stuff? And it was, a million years ago in 2012 when, you couldn't go to school for like UX design. You could do like human computer interface and stuff like that, but it was much more nascent. And I was able to tap dance my way onto that side of the fence and basically, sort of like unlock uh, all of the, those scary, awesome things of like, oh, wow, it's like, I don't know how to do all of this. And I'm going to have to fake it till I make it on a bunch of this stuff because they think I do. so, um, and yeah, I wouldn't, I'm big on positive inversion. So looking back, I wouldn't have um, made that decision on my own. I wouldn't have just been like, oh, let's think about what the next path. I just would have stayed, sort of on the course I was on. Um, and that happened again a few years ago when a little bit different in that case. Uh, I'd had like three different jobs consecutively where I was like very quickly getting frustrated um, about my role and the opportunity. And like, it took me a little while to realize I'm like, oh, these jobs are fine. Like they're great jobs. You look at them on paper, I was like, that's a great opportunity. And I I realized I was frustrated because I was like, I've hit that ceiling again of like I've sort of done all this before, and it's like, oh, but now you're going to do it on this thing, and I was like, I'm like, but we've done it. Like, I'm like, there's a playbook for this, and I felt myself becoming a practitioner versus like a creator, and that's when I really started putting back on the table the notion of I think the only job I'm going to be really happy and driven by is the one that I create for myself, which is, was the seed of what became Read AI. But also, I would say um, the preamble to that, which really gets to the core of your question, is I have two awesome kids, Zoe and Bear. Bear's 11, Zoe's 7. Zoe's equal parts strawberry shortcake and Joan Rivers in one person. I've been describing her that way since she's 3. It still holds. Um, Best friend. It's super creepy. Love her to death. Bear, he is my guy. He is on the autism spectrum, minimally verbal, natural language, just has never really naturally made sense to him. Um, and during what I sort of call the acceptance curve of, you know, becoming a parent, then alone being sort of like tossed into neurodivergence, and you're not even an expert at parenting ever, let alone all of these actual domains. And I had unconsciously taken the notion of, oh, I'm working at all these companies so I can be a founder one day off the table, because I was like, okay, I'm in a different, soup now. My risk profile is fundamentally different. We got a million things to figure out. And um, so I kept in these companies trying to turn them into something they weren't, like turn a Fortune 500 company into a startup culture. And it's like, beat my head against the wall on that one, a bunch of times. Um, because I was like, okay, I have to stay on the path. And the I think burning out from, sort of that second chapter of my career, more recently, but in combination with the evolution of, sort of, I guess, my personal and professional self-awareness, our family, it's like we got to a place where it's like, we're not a typical family, but we got our system, like this works for us. And that opened up an opportunity. And I'm very fortunate in many ways, big ways, my partner, who was like, pretty much nudged me over the edge. Like I wouldn't have been brave enough to be like, hey, I know this is going to sound crazy, but like, let's do this really risky thing that is going to drain all of our savings indefinitely. And yeah, I wouldn't have, I wouldn't have been able to get on to sort of that, sane and purposeful path that I feel like I'm on now, without all those factors and those sort of, life supports.
Yeah, I was struck. I'm rarely struck, but one of my people I know who was sort of on the path and then became an entrepreneur, he recently posted, and I hope I get this right, but like there are three things that are super addictive, like heroin, carbs, and a bi-monthly paycheck.
Oh my
And
God. Yes.
and I was like, don't know about the first two. Okay, maybe with French fries, but the
Yeah.
bi-monthly paycheck hit like that is real. So I mean, I know you have a great supportive partner and you have the
Yeah.
system, but like how did you kick that habit, or how did you feel about that?
Um, well, so I started to realize that most of the things that I like founder cliches that I used to just think were like performative LinkedIn posts, most of those are true. I live a lot of those in real time. um, we had done a lot of planning and, you know, um, cashing in stock and banking bonuses and things like that so that we had, like a solid cushion. But the anxiety is real on a day-to-day basis. There's like, it's like, will we have enough funds for the business to keep going? But in the meantime, like every day that goes by, it's like we're I'm personally burning, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the that can't go on forever, unfortunately. And yeah, I mean, it adds an extra sort of ticker, um, that doesn't really turn off. Um, yeah, it's like every day, it's like you're paying for this opportunity. So it's like, what are you doing? um, and but trying to not let that sort of turn me into a monster in my family, or just like completely absent. But age helps with that. So
You have to go to bed. You
yeah,
can't possibly stay.
yeah, yeah. I've my body knows me better now. So
Well, I mean, speaking of our bodies and like time, is there something about this stage of life that has surprised you, like something that crept up on you?
um, the best advice I got before we had our first child was long days, fast years. And I mean, this is common and a cliche, but like the notion that it's like you just get so laser focused on like when will they all be out of diapers? Like that's the only milestone that matters. um, and then you sort of wake up and it's like everybody's at 5 day a week school. They're asking about screens, like and when my oldest turned 10, I was like, Jesus. I'm like, how? I'm like, so now there's like a different ticker that's on of like, there's there's no little boy left in Bear. It's like he's capital B boy turning
Yeah.
into young man. Um, and same with Zoe, but fortunately she's really short, so I can sort of like, right, in my mind's eye, it's very fine. But yeah, the my parents always talk about like the passage of time, like it's just like mind blowing. And my mom's 83, my dad's 93, so they have had quite a long passage, many passages. Um, but it is, I'm hitting up, I'm starting to feel a lot of those, age old cliches of like, wow, 50 years old, who turns 50? Like I'm looking down the barrel on 50. That can't be, because that is not a 20-year-old. um, but I think also, because I'm wired the way I am, I feel a sense of urgency of like, oh, it's like, you when you're 20, it's like your whole life is in front of you. You have decades to make mistakes and figure stuff out and try things. And now it's like, get focused, kid. You know, and soon enough, I'll, got to start thinking about ageism and like things like that. So it's an adventure. I think it is. I'm going to latch onto the cliche of just like the long days, fast years. I'm very conscious of, and trying very hard, sort of let go of all of that when you have like newborns baggage and you're in survival mode and you're just sort of like, just like, can't we just fast forward until, they know how to do this, or we sleep through the night or things like that. Like there's no rewind. And yeah, it's like trying to really savor moments when I'm like aware of them, of like, oh, it's like, this is great. And, it's like, soak it in, because, it's like they might not care about doing any of this next year. So
Yeah. You mentioned being very impatient.
mm-hmm,
Are
mm-hmm.
there places where you're finding yourself becoming more patient?
Oh yeah. Um, the so I I always refer to our family as a divergent family because we have a neurodivergent loved one, and the biggest part of that journey that was a switch that was very difficult for me to flip in my own life, prior to being a dad, was you know realizing and owning it's like there is no timetable for this. There are no, like, I was real. I'm like, what are the, he's 4. What are the milestones? What are the things we should be working towards, looking for? Da, 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 da. Like, help me understand so, you know, we can get him into mainstream school because, like there's so much more we didn't know than know back then. Um, but yeah, he's 11 now, and he goes to an awesome, amazing school called the Talk School, which is right outside of Philadelphia, where we live. And people ask like, "Oh, what grade is Barron now?" And I'm like, "He's in Bear's grade." Yeah, and that it was difficult for someone who's like, okay, we got something to accomplish. Like, how do we get there? What's the best path or the easiest path or the fastest, to let go and just be like, you have no control over especially as like a product guy, like all the metaphors of like, how do we add velocity to this? Like, we need more bandwidth for that. And it's like, you cannot add velocity to this. You can't control the velocity of it at all. In fact, sometimes certain things may dial up much faster. Certain things may regress, where it's like, oh, we thought we had checked the box on that. No, uncheck the box. And just getting super comfortable with like, well, that's normal. And all right, like, so we'll shift focus to that. Okay. So it's like, oh, we thought we were going to do this. Okay. Well, we're going to do something else. And I'm super comfortable in that skin now. But I mean, it took the better part of a decade to get there.
Yeah, it's a
Anything's
process.
possible over 10 years.
Not a minute sooner. Um, so you mentioned screens, like you're raising kids in the age of screens. You are developing an app, you have an app. But we did not grow up in that environment. So what was it like? I don't know if you can do this, but like, do you have a sense of how coming of age before this idea of constant connectivity shaped you?
Hanging out at the mall,
Which
landline
mall?
telephones.
Let's hear which.
Well, Livingston was closest to me because you were West Orange, I think. And Short Hills was nice, a little bit more of a schlep. Food court was a little bit more expensive. They had a Sparrows though, so that was key. I always wanted to go to like the Cool Kid Mall on the other side of Montclair, like Willowbrook, but it was such a schlep that I usually couldn't swing that one. But yeah, uh, the I mean, smoking cigarettes, have getting your private landline. That was like the coming of age of like you got your own number, and there was a little. I guess that would be the best analog I could see to like the being able to constantly message folks is like when you had your own line. It was like, yeah, I'm just gonna like talk to my friend for 3 hours about nothing right now. um, but the yeah, I mean, Zoe hit the jackpot on the smarts gene pool. She's like, all into like Duolingo and da da da. And she's like, oh, can I connect with this person, this person? And we're like, no, no, you may not. It's like, you can connect with your grandfather and this family friend of ours. Actually, Jean and Zoe are now connected on Duolingo.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, the only thing that's allowing me to not freak out about it just yet is, communication isn't very strong suit. So we get to kick that can down the road. And a lot is going to happen between now and Zoe being a teenager. So I'm almost sort of like deferring. It's like, okay, we've got these like sensible rules now, but like, 5 years from now, let's see what the rules actually need to be. But yeah, connection. I would say here's the bellwether that blows my mind. My nephews, they're teenagers. None of them have a driver's license because they're like, why would I need that? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like that was the epitome of everything. It was independence. It was cool. It was, oh, it's like, we're going to go to that person's house for a party, because they're, out of town or whatever, like the cliched 90s suburban stuff. Like the car was critical. And yeah, they just sort of like don't see the point. And like that blew my mind because I was like, they I guess they feel so connected, but like they're doing it asynchronously and in different locations. So that, scares me because it's the actual getting together of it all. Same thing for, kids who are people who are graduating into this job market. Like, I love that I can work remotely now. It's huge as a dad. But like my social life was extremely tethered to my work friends for like 15 years. All of the good friends I still have now were people who were like work friends from the younger years, and like not having that, like I couldn't imagine. I'd be like, adulthood literally sucks. Like, why? This is literally the worst.
Oh my God. I'm still back on the car, but I mean, because the thing about, that time, I mean, I don't want to scare you as a dad, but I remember when we would go to parties, my dad would drop me off before we could drive
Mm-hmm.
and he'd hand me a quarter and
Uh-huh.
he'd say, if anything happens, you can find a payphone and
Yeah.
you can call me.
Yeah.
And like that was, it was just kind of, but other than that, if I didn't use that quarter, if I, like,
Yeah.
I was
No news
just
was good news.
right, right. She's just out there. She'll be back. And then the car, getting to listen to your own music, that was huge,
Yes. Oh,
right?
yes. Yes. And the like, what were the select stickers you were going to put on the back? Like, it's like, were you going to put the lacrosse sticker on the back? Are you a lacrosse guy? Is that,
I only had a little like LP sticker to get in and out of Llewellyn Park, but
Yeah.
other than that, unadorned.
Yeah.
Um, wow. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
I'm gonna get myself back. Okay, so now fast forward, we are living in a world where we now have access, just like the youngsters, right? Like we've
Mm.
got our phones, we got our wearables. How do you protect your ability to focus or pay attention?
Um, That's a great question. For a long while, I it was a hack for me because my brother got diagnosed with ADHD in his early 50s. My dad got diagnosed with ADHD in his 80s. So I'm pretty sure I have undiagnosed ADHD. I used to always view it as I was like, oh, it's a multitasking superpower. I'm like, if you can harness it, then it's like you can get so much done. You can jam on all these different things. Um, I have noticed, there is a ceiling to that, and particularly now where you have to wear like 12 different hats, six of which you've never worn before and don't even know if you're supposed to be wearing them. Like the amount of distraction gets. It's the first time in a very long time where I'm like, wow, get a hold of yourself. Like you have literally bounced around. I have three screens in front of me, literally bounced around these screens for the last 2 hours. You haven't made meaningful progress on anything. But one thing that I did start to do is really, engage in, you know, like D&D and like turning off, because it's like I've got Slack, I've got text, I've got email, like quitting browsers and literally like putting things of just sort of like heads down, not on phone until this time, um, to help me focus. But also, it's like there are times where you also just need to like push back and walk away and like go for a walk around the block to to focus. Because there is this notion of like, I mean, we are all so hyper connected now. The I and it was the big thing that almost broke me during the pandemic was I had spent my entire life creating this very clear construct of like work happens at work, life happens at home. And it's like, so if I have to work late, I work late, but when I leave, it's like done. And then all of a sudden you're thrown into like that construct cannot physically exist for an indefinite amount of time. I was not my best self for those first 6 months, let me tell you. But uh, yeah, I mean the efficiency struggle is real, and especially now with AI tools that are most of the time actually very useful. But the the pace is getting crazy. The pace of information, the pace of action, decision making. I'm a big believer that a good plan today is better than the perfect plan next month. But it's like, it's that's getting condensed down into an insane amount. So it's it's gonna be weird. I don't know how I'm basically doing like customer research when it comes to like my children and that sort of stuff, of just like observing and jumping in early on things where I just sort of like nope, and it's like why, and it's like nope.
Nope.
The answer is nope. And yeah, it's like you can be pissed off at me, but we both know it's not going to last. And yeah, yeah, because I don't, because otherwise, yeah, it's like I'm trying to be very conscious of like rules should be durable, and I don't want to be making 12 sets of rules every hour and then undoing them in the next hour. So we shall see. The jury's out. No evidence, no data back on how effective that is.
Okay, we'll check back in a
Yes.
decade,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Please, let's do
Let's do
that.
it. As you were talking about that, I remembered something I hadn't thought about in years, but I don't know if you remember when we used to have SSR, sustained silent reading time.
Oh, wow, that was a deep cut right there. Sustained silent reading time, which now as an adult, I'm like, this was totally like the adult break. I'm like, all right, we're doing SSR. It's, it's shut up, read your goddamn book. Um, yeah. Oh my God. And you could hear a pin drop.
Right.
Um,
And we were young. It was, I mean, this
Yeah.
idea of like our brains changing and, being able
Yeah.
to settle and be still. I mean,
Hmm.
I always hated nap time. I was never good at nap
Yeah. I
time,
could
but
never
like,
sleep. I could never sleep during nap
right.
time.
But this idea of like, just go read a book. I used to, I mean, I love reading, I love writing, but working at the law firm kind of broke me and turned me into a television
Mm,
person. Like I always liked
yeah.
television, but like the idea of what you do when you come home at the end of the day, I was like, I can't confront any more
Words.
written
No.
words.
Yeah.
No more words. And it was the beginning of
Totally.
like reality TV. So I was like, no more thoughts. Just people
Yeah.
yelling at each other. It's fine. It's fine.
No, I'm very much so. Kate is she carries the mantle for the reality TV consumption in the house. We are on the leaderboard in that regard. Um, but the yeah, I mean, it's even things like true crime series. Like it's mindless, but it's interesting. Like from like a, how did the puzzle pieces fit together? Because I'm always like, hey, I know we Peacock has 100 episodes of this, but like you already know how these turn out. And she's like, nope, it's
Got
like
to
it
keep going.
works. Yeah.
Yeah.
um,
Well,
but
I'll
yeah,
watch like new television, but I'll watch like like new. But again, with all of the attention, it's like I just miss the broadcast schedule, knowing that there's gonna be like 48 episodes of something. There's gonna be reruns on certain holidays, summer
yeah.
break. You come back to three channels, maybe one if you have cable. Now I can't keep track of like when are you on, when are you off. So I've started binging things like Homeland and Ozark, like just because I have this like
No, I'm totally the same way. I'm like, if there isn't at least one full season, I'm like, call me when you have a binge worthy thing. And I mean, those are actually really good shows. I'm finding a lot of times I'm like, I want something on that isn't totally stupid. That's like like entertaining enough and has yeah like 24 plus episodes. Um, and it's like I'll be on my couch, and this is a bad example where I'll be like, "Oh, it's like I can do this little, I can work on this spreadsheet while I'm watching." But in my mind, I'm like, I'm accomplishing this like self care thing because I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna sit down and watch like 4 episodes of something. Like, look at me, just resting and relaxing. But um, yeah, I, uh, I feel you. The needing to turn off. My vice is we discovered a wood burning fireplace in our house, and when it is cold out, uh, like that's actually like my psychological switch. Like when I come downstairs and I light the fire, that's like the workday is done. And it's cool and old school and olfactory and audit, like it's a multi-sensory experience. And like, the kids will come in with their, pads or books, and we're all just like sitting. I'm a big believer. This is also like a divergent life thing of um, like together but apart, where it's like we're all like we're hanging out together. We may be doing different things, but it's like we're doing it together, and that I would say that's probably the evolution of the going to the mall. um, the although we have started to resurrect Monopoly, which is the best never ending game ever. I think.
and yet it is so entertaining.
It is. It is. And you start to really see the colors of the different people in your family.
What's your go-to Monopoly piece?
um, I think recently it's been the top hat. I used to be the race car guy, but I let the ladies in the house choose first. I'm very chivalric that way. Uh, um, but it's interesting to see. Kate's a realtor, so she takes it very. She's like, this is basically
Oh,
what like
okay.
this is what I do for a living. So,
Goes to war.
um, so she gets very frustrated when her 7-year-old accidentally starts like schooling her. But it's like a realtor's training program. Um,
I'm curious what her strategy is. Does she go for the lower tier properties, or is she like looking for the greens and the yellows?
she's a mid to high tier,
Okay.
um,
Okay.
unless it's almost like equivalent of like when there's volume sitting on the market too long. where it's like, if she goes around enough and people start acquiring, then she's just like, yeah, give me Baltic. Like I want.
Baltic or
She's
bust.
like, I need something here.
Got to get in the game. Wow, love this. What would you, so, passage of time, all this knowledge, you are now a wise person, at least for
Mm,
this first half of
ish.
life. If you were the commencement speaker for your college graduation, what would you tell your younger self?
um, I think I would I would tell my younger self to not get too hung up with like the credentialization of things, um, and to lean into the whether it's personally, professionally, what have you, like the experiencing of things. There was, and I'm sure this was similar in your early law days, where it's like there's like whole chunks of time that were just sort of like I got up, I went to the office, I worked really hard, I came home late. I got up, I went to the office, I worked like, and it's like, oh wow, it's like there were 5 years of that right out of school, um, because it's like I wanted this certain title, I wanted this certain opportunity, um, and I got great advice from my earliest mentor, who was my creative director at the time, because I was getting a master's in design, and I was a creative assistant, which is I was like a glorified secretary for the head of the department. Was pretty decent at ordering lunches, I will say, but booking conference rooms, eh.
You don't need it now.
Yeah,
Nobody's doing
right,
it.
yeah. But the he pulled me aside one day and he's like, "Hey, um, you know, I've got some real client work for you to do, and this, is going to help make the path to get you, sort of out of the assistant level." And I was like, "Oh, well, like I've got I've got two classes in my course load this week, and like da da da, and when is the this and that?" And he's like, "So look, here's the thing. Do you know how much more they're going to pay you when you are an art director or designer with a master's degree?" And I was like, "How much?" He's like, $0. So you can spend your time after work working on spec work for your portfolio, or you can you know dial back the school and actually build the thing that's going to advance you forward. Um, and I took his advice. I'm still thesis in progress, which is carefully noted on every job application I ever do. I'm like, I didn't graduate, not claiming I graduated. Um, but that was, I think, a really important learning moment that I would want to sort of, pass on. Like, he was right. Like I am not, I closed off a path to being a associate and adjunct professor at a design school, for the time being, at least. But it's like, did I want the cachet and sort of the psychological income of being like, master's in design, um, or did I want to advance the doing? And to my parents' chagrin, I opted for the latter. They've gotten over it, but yeah, there were a lot of moments in my life where I was like, oh, this will look really this tells my CV narrative really nicely, um, and it's like, were they all great investments in life and time? No, they weren't. Like some of them, yeah, some of them were good, but like no. um, so yeah, it's like you can't. My, as you might have guessed, my general life philosophy is, it's like make regret regret the things you did, not the things you wish you had done. It's just like lean into the doing. Like nothing bugs me more than like, oh, I wish I had done that, versus like, oh, I did that and I fucked it up, but like, you know, if I done it this way, like because even in there, I'm seeing where the pivot comes in, but it's like the regretting not doing something or not trying something, like, oh, that makes my blood boil. So Yeah, Do the Doing is the t-shirt that will be available for sale at arrowtucker.com. No.
You can design it, right?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
like 15 minutes. That would be a great distraction.
It's like, John, what are you doing? Ara said design a t-shirt.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I got to push this meeting. I need to design a t-shirt right now.
Right. Do the doing. I love it.
That'd be fun. I might actually do that.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll stay tuned. We'll watch that space. I want a limited edition version.
Obviously.
I'll send you
Yeah.
my size later. All right. So we are moving into the final portion of this experience called the lightning round.
Uh-oh.
And this one is our shared operating system. So if you listen to past episodes, you think you know, I switched it up for this season.
No doubt.
Yeah. All right. Our first category is pop culture. I'm going to give you two options and you're going to pick one. You can explain why. You can be like, that's it. We'll see. It's called lightning round, but it could go another, hour or so.
Yeah. Totally.
All right. Let's start. So MTV's The Real World or VH1's Behind the Music?
Behind the Music. Definitely Behind the Music. It's like an information puzzle. You're getting to reveal all these little things about this song that you love that you didn't know. I love that. Kate's answer definitely would have been MTV's Real World, no doubt. Even though it was real, it always felt really staged to me. And I don't I don't need drama in my relaxation. I'm like, I live with people too. I don't need to watch this.
Well, I'm curious. Okay, so like even the first season, you're not even there for that?
No. Well, I mean the genre creating, convention busting season, yes. Because we'd never seen anything like it. I did not have cable during that first season, so I came to it later when there was more of like, oh, this is
what it is. Yeah.
But no, I mean the disruption of that, was epic. But I think because I lived it after, it wasn't quite the same. It always makes me think of Reality Bites, where it's like the pizza with the mouth, because that's what ended up happening to all derivatives. But yeah, I mean, there was also, we're talking about HIV and real life LGBTQ issues, to an audience that had definitely been shielded from that to a large degree, well, at least in mainstream, channels. And I mean, it is quintessential 90s. Like, we are culturally sort of the way we're wired because of moments like that. And, Bill Clinton playing the saxophone, which is a little bit more comical, but, yeah, no, you're right. I think I've also MTV actually mattered back then. It was really culturally significant. MTV News was a thing that you would watch for the news. And then, it just sort of devolved so badly. But I wish that most streaming today was like pop-up video, where it's just sort of like, oh, here's this thing that it's like, I just inherently am like, oh, I like this. And it's like, oh, that was interesting. Oh, no way.
Here's another rabbit hole you can go down.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's fair. There are no wrong answers, by the way, despite, the host bias clearly coming through.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely going to speak to your executive producer. This is from a safe space to, I don't know.
Direct all complaints to my cat, Matilda. All right. I think I know this answer, but we'll see. Appointment TV or binge culture?
Oh, binge. Definitely binge. I feel like we're in the Flintstones era when it's like, oh, on the next episode. And I'm like, on the next episode? I'm like, I got to wait around like a regular schnook for how many days? I've been experiencing this with The Pit, where I'm like, guys, come on. I'm like, you found a way to reboot ER without it being ER. we're totally into it again. I love it. And no, I don't want to wait 7 calendar days to watch the next episode. But sorry, I feel strongly about this.
I was going to say, you got some feelings. I have some feelings about seeing Dr. Robbie with his readers because I have some progressives now. So I feel like, I'm aging along,
Mhm.
with my heroes. Yeah.
Indeed.
I'm glad I gave you that moment to
Yeah.
just,
Well, it's early in the week as my eyes get tired. Toward the Thursday and Friday are my prime reader days.
okay,
Monday and Tuesday, I'm usually
fresh
still
eyed.
sort of in focus. Is the only perfect thing about me was my vision. I was better than 2020 in my entire life. Drove everyone in my life crazy because none of them were. And I was like, wow, I am just really tired all the time, I guess, because it's getting really hard to read some of this stuff. And then I was like, or you no longer have perfect vision.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome. We're here for you.
Everyone saw it coming with me.
All right, on to the next. Cassette mixtape or Spotify playlist?
Mixtape. The mixtape, much like what was formerly known as the album, was an intentional narrative. And it wasn't just sort of like an aggregate collection of like, oh, here are similar things. But uh, I love narratives and storytelling. I think they're very powerful and I think they're very intentional. So yeah, for me, playlist is background music and mixtape is an intentional story. The notion of like getting a mixtape from or a playlist from a crush is sort of like, I would almost view that more as like homework. I'm like, okay, these are the songs you like versus like someone makes you a mixtape. It's like, ooh, what's the story they're trying to tell me here?
Mm.
So yeah, mixtape for life.
Um, what were your sources? Were you okay? So were you a maker? Well, of course, you're a doer. Were you you were a maker and a receiver of mixtapes? Can we focus on your making of the mixtapes for a moment?
Yeah. I was 13 and it was when my brother was going to college. My parents found a really good deal. He needed to buy a stereo because that was a thing you needed to purchase before you went to college in 1989. And they got a good deal. So we both got one, which was like classic disparity between me and my brother. Like he didn't get a stereo until they went to college. I'm getting one at like, 15 years old. Um, and it had you had to have the two tape deck because it was like, what is the point if you might as well just get like a boom box if you're not going to have the two? Um, and yeah, the making. God, I'm trying to think. I was so influenced. I'd be curious if your sister was the reverse of this. I always consider myself Gen X because my brother is Gen X, and older siblings. You worship them, and so like a lot of my pop culture sort of skews that way. Um, so like I had like Led Zeppelin 4 and like Octung Baby and Simon and Garfunkel. Like there would be like a classic rock ebb and flow. Um, but I think it's like I didn't really know what I was doing and I was self conscious. So it was like whatever the just middle school clique popular like music where it was like, oh yeah, let's get a Grateful Dead song in there.
Right. Let's get some fish. You
Yeah.
should be feeling
Oh,
really
that was high school. Yeah, that was not judging. I'm just glad that chapter of my life has been written and
enclosed.
yeah.
Yeah. With the mixtape, and I promise I'll leave it soon, but were you ever someone who waited up for a radio song to play, or were you always doing the cassette to cassette?
I do remember there were a few times with the mad dash over to the stereo when we're listening to the radio. And it's like, oh my god, it's that song, and like scrambling and being like, oh, am I recording over something? I don't know. Like, but like, it's like it didn't matter. It's just like mania. I'm like, oh, this is my chance to get that shit, to get
Like
that
they'll never
song.
play again.
Yeah, yeah. Or it's like, who knows if it'll ever play again? um, yeah, and it wasn't the same. I mean, there was a tactileness, obviously, to like the dubbing, I guess is what it was called. But yeah, it's like burning CDs didn't hit the same. Yeah.
The risk felt lower. You weren't going to really scratch up a CD. That the cassette, you could feel the film. It was the spools. You had to be
Well,
the
and then there was the
length.
cassette label, the
Yeah. Were
inside the
you?
case. That
What
was
were
where
you
like the
doing?
masterpiece had to unfold.
Were you handwriting? Were you using stickers, markers, Sharpie? Like, what was your?
I'm sure I was handwriting, which meant that it may not have been legible. What I probably like ran out of space and was like, oh shit, like, I don't know. And then it was definitely, as a designer now, I would say it was definitely decorated. It was probably not that intentional, but that was part of the like cachet of like no two mixtapes were the same, both in terms of what was the music was, but like, you know, you would see, you wanted to almost see like, and if you got one, it was like, ooh, it's like inspect every detail of like what's going on, with this little encrypted note. Um, yeah, oh,
Yeah,
I totally forgot about those, the case liners or whatever they were called.
that
People used
sound.
to use like print shop and like make their own.
Whoa. Print
Yeah,
shop with the
yes,
dot
ma'am.
matrix printer. You got the
Yeah.
So it's clear we had a lot of free time. So we're going to go into the free time
Yeah.
category. They were so busy in their 20s, but before that,
Yeah.
okay. Oregon Trail or Carmen San Diego?
Ooh, that's tough. That is really tough. Um, I can only choose one of those.
This is your lightning round. You do
All
you.
right. I mean, I'm gonna find a way to choose both. Oregon Trail, I was always like, I don't understand how this is educational, but this is like the funnest thing to do at school. And I'm like, apparently they're like, yeah, no, that's okay. Go play Oregon Trail. And it's like, okay. I wanted to. I didn't know Zeke was a name. I was like, typhoid. What is that? That sounds crazy. Um, there's something about that game where, I mean, I guess it had like the Monopoly thing to it of like, you just wanted to see if you could, where it would go next, what would happen. And Carmen San Diego, I remember playing on my home personal computer, my dad's computer. Um, I think most kids won't admit that everyone sort of had a crush on Carmen San Diego. There was that like, you know, collar, hat, and the long hair, and you wanted to know what she looked like. And I don't know, maybe that was just me.
Very evasive, quite hard to get. I'll
Yeah,
give you
yeah,
that.
yeah, exactly. Very worldly. She's basically like a secret agent. But yeah, well, there's a romance to sort of that global view. I went to space camp in sixth grade. Everyone else who went to space camp uh, was like really good at math and science. I was super jazzed about space camp because I was like, I'm like the raw ambition and like romance of like, we are going to figure out how to explore outer space when that wasn't a given. I was like, that's unbelievable. I'm like, yeah, I want to learn anything I can about that. Um, I was basically the only person in space camp who was motivated by that. But I think Carmen San Diego had the same sort of thing where it's like, ooh, it's like you're in a market in India. Wow, that's cool. Like,
And you probably knew the capitals because you were a world traveler.
well, I mean, we all remember from the TV show the acapella, rockapella, I believe.
Rockapella.
Yes. I find at least once a year there is a contextually appropriate reason to sing the Carmen San Diego rockapella opening theme. Yeah, yeah. I mean, if
Okay.
you know, you know.
If in addition to the limited edition t-shirts, we'll be selling your recording on a mixtape,
Yeah,
limited
yeah.
editions.
It'll be mixed. No video on that one. Uh,
No. Mixtape
Well,
design
my
again.
afternoon shot. I got a lot to do coming out of this.
You got a lot to do. We're not done. All right, we're still rocking here. A lot more free time. Reading Rainbow or Saturday morning cartoons?
um, I mean, I'm going to go for Reading Rainbow. I was a very staunch Saturday morning cartoon watcher, but the Reading Rainbow was like the only live action kids show that I was exposed to that they just very like they clearly designed that the content and the stories and the direction for like what would be interesting to like a 7-year old. And even though I was like, suspect of the whole platform because I'm like, oh, I think they're trying to teach me something.
How dare they?
Yeah, I'm like, this is my time, sir. um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't have any. I only have fond memories of Butterfly in the Sky. See, I do have to do a mixtape now. Uh,
Yep. Yep. Let's see. I
oh,
gotcha.
I'm going to give it just to you. This is not something for sale. No one's going to buy this. So just,
Oh, I think they might. After that little teaser, they
yeah,
just might.
teaser dropped. See, now I'm just like trying to concept. It's like a mixtape that's only a cappella of like 80s and early 90s kids theme songs. Got some little growing pains in there. All right, there's some legs here. I'll come back to you on the mixtape.
Give me a storyboard. I'll look forward to it.
Please.
Actually, my senior thesis, I did use soundtrack. So it was like the public and private spaces of coming out, and I like
Yeah.
re-architected like a family living room and like a kid's bedroom. But like I was like, I got to have the soundtrack CD. That was
Yeah.
like my big, yeah.
Oh. Oh my God. Yes, that was for sale. It was
There,
the, it
there
was
were,
the
yeah,
sound.
and you could do
Yeah.
like like our parents' age and like Bonanza, but then it was like then you started hearing like da 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 da, da and I was done. Dallas.
Ooh. Yeah.
We're gonna have a very clear audience for this season of
I oh,
your two.
definitely. Yeah. 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 No,
Yeah,
and I'm here for it.
love it. I love it. Um, okay, so speaking of being somewhere with free time, record store or library?
Would have been record store. Um,
Sam Goody, Tower, something independent.
Um, my brain goes to, well, in my younger years, it would have been Sam Goody. That's where most of my early tapes were purchased, and that was in the Livingston Mall. Um, Later, I never got into vinyl. I feel like it's like I would have totally been one of those vinyl guys. I just never got into it. So I sort of like missed the window. But I do distinctly remember when there were like secondhand CD stores. Like every college town had one because someone was always moving and being like, "Oh, I don't need all these CDs from freshman year." Um, and I used to love those. There's like a treasure hunt aspect to it. But yeah, they also remind me there was I really wanted to be good at playing guitar when I was a kid. Spent my bar mitzvah money on a guitar. Um, and there were certain music stores that when you walked in, they had like the same vibe and energy and smell as like Manny's House of Music, which a blessed memory. Where it's just like a place that had been there forever. That like, oh, there were like pictures of rock stars on the wall who like bought things there when they were in for Madison Square Garden or wherever, and yeah, I don't know. There was just like a very specific vibe to like this is a music place, and I mean, what came with that was also the downside of like, did you know enough? Like, you never knew enough compared to the guy who worked at the record shop. Like, so it's just sort of like, oh, you want that? Like, that cliche is very true.
I
um,
made that mistake. I thought I was going to be a DJ at WPRB 103.3 FM. And I walked in and they were like, they tricked me. They're like, yeah, if you like top 40, I'm like, yeah, Z100. I'm like, and they're like, you don't really belong here.
yeah, let's go.
Oh, so I became their sales director.
Yeah,
But yeah, yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I think when I think of record stores, I think of yeah, Manny's House of Music. And then, yeah, that whole row, it was in, I think the 40 or no, it was 30, it was in the 30s in Midtown. None of those shops are there anymore, but there were also like little places that were just like family owned that had been there forever. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I got to figure out a way to describe that feeling, but it was unique. I've not experienced it since.
It's like your Madeline, your Proustian sensory memory that only you can unlock somehow.
Yeah, I got a bunch of those, I think, but yeah.
Maybe you'll become a parfumier.
Yeah,
Scents to go along with meat read.
that's right. We are multisensory.
Multisensory. All right. We're going to move into the technology category.
Bum bum bum.
Thank you. Game Boy or Etch a Sketch?
Game Boy. I remember my friend Jason Hurley was the first person I knew who got a Game Boy, and we were just like mesmerized. And I think it was just Tetris, like, but it was like we did nothing for like a 14-hour period, but like take turns back and forth. I think his parents had ended up taking us out to dinner, and we were still like under the table. Like, I don't know.
Little thumbs.
It was like, yeah, we should have seen the iPhone coming and all of the stickiness there just from Game Boy. Yeah, that stuck.
Okay. BlackBerry or pager?
I wanted a pager so badly in high school. And my mom was like, "Why? Are you selling drugs?"
It's a very specific demographic at a
Yes,
certain point.
yes. And I didn't need a pager. I just thought it was so cool. I was like, "Oh yeah, so I can stay in touch with my friends."
We're sitting right next to you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, yeah. Looking back, it's like, no, I didn't need a pager, but oh god, I wanted one so badly. Um, yeah, BlackBerry. I pretty much avoided most of the BlackBerry phase because I was like, BlackBerries are for suits. Uh, but that was also back in a time where you could be like, I don't want to be accountable for being connected to work 24/7. There was a time where that was a conscious option you could make.
There was a time back in the day.
Yeah. But yeah, I think pager, ideally like a translucent color.
I was going to say, you probably had like a very specific model in mind. Was it neon, John? Was it neon?
It was like a blue translucent in my mind. I don't know what model it was because, truth be told, I'm not even sure if I remember how they work. But I remember the first time I saw one of those bricks that had like you could send like a whole. You could use the QWERTY to send like a whole sentence, and I was like, "Wow, now that is really useful." For what? I don't know. It's 1995, but yeah, I'm gonna stick with pager.
Okay, final answer.
Yeah.
Great. It gives you you get to stay alive for one more technology question. DOS or Mac OS?
Oh, I grew up in a DOS house. I am a Mac boy for life. And every time you say something like that, then you end up not doing it. But yeah, my dad was very keen on sort of. He was actually for someone I had an older dad compared to my peers. He was very big on early adoption of technology. We had an IBM PC that had no hard drive. There were 2 floppy drives. So you had to have the MS-DOS disk, which had to be in, and the door had to be closed before you turned it on so that there was a system to operate the computer. And then there was the other drive for the different applications and or saving things. But like that whole shimmy of like, I don't know if you ever tried to play a game on it, but it was like, insert disk 2. All right, insert disk 6, insert disk 12. And like, so it could pull together what it needed to run that like little piece of the game. And that's just how it was back then. But Yeah, that monocolor screen, that green and black. Uh, Later, there was like that sort of yellow and black, which was like, ooh, and it was like harder to read and looked sort of like pee. I don't know why we got so excited about that. Um, but yeah, it wasn't when I was on my brother's Macintosh in college. That was the first time where I was like, this is a whole different thing. Because logo writer, I was like, you're trying to teach me basic geometry, but it's a turtle moving
Come
around.
on. You had to go after logo writer. That was like the thing.
Well, I mean, that was up there with Oregon Trail, except it was like overt that it's like, this is about math. Um, but my whole thing was figuring out, like, now I know that they were basically, it's like formulas for how to get like the different patterns. But yeah, I just wanted to make the different patterns and stuff.
Is this a false memory? But I recall we had a project in fourth grade where we were basically using logo to do a Carmen San Diego esque like thing. Did I make that up?
Sounds familiar enough that uh, yeah, now I'm looking back and breaking it apart where it's like, oh yeah, it's like it was creating like logic of like, do we probably had like two
Critics
branches of
like
like
if
choose this
then.
or that.
But again, I'm like, well, was Ben Affleck really in Voyage of the Mimi? Like, I don't. It's
Yes,
all.
he
Was he?
was right.
Okay.
Yes, a
Okay.
thousand percent.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I
See,
reference that when people talk about Ben Affleck as much as I possibly can because yes, Mr. Jerome's class and Voyage
Mr.
of the Mimi,
Jerome, whale watching, Provincetown.
where everyone got sick and puked on the bed.
Super sick.
You
But I
can't
had
make
some.
that stuff up.
Can't make it up. All right, our final
Yeah.
category.
There's a canon on that one.
No, 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 can't. Rest in peace, Mr. Jerome.
Yes.
All right, signals. So, aim away message or LinkedIn headline.
Ooh. I would probably say LinkedIn headline. Um, yeah. I was surprisingly not into AIM. And then there was ICQ, which was, yeah. Yeah. Because I think, and this is going to sound crazy, like I was like a freshman in college and being like, hey, why don't I just go over and talk to them? Crazy.
You
Why
and your
don't I like just
IRL
sit in this
stuff.
horrible dorm room? Why don't I go over and see what they're up to? That used to be my instinct. But but yeah, I think yeah I still my ego still sort of goes for the what's the headline?
It's all
Got to
right.
know yourself. Yeah.
It's cool. Um, private ambition or public metrics.
Oh, private ambition. Um, it's one of the things that I am super uncomfortable about in my current founder life. That is just a reality. As Kate reminded me, she's like, "You just got to climb Summit Cringe Mountain, like get over it."
Get to that next
Um,
raise, John. Come on, you
yeah,
can do it.
um, yeah. I don't like being the center of the story. There's always it's like love working with people, love being on teams. Best things happen together. I hate the the performance and the braggery. It's just like it makes me cringe. Yeah, yeah, definitely not wired that way. And also, like the, most of the things we do aren't actually important or worthy of like, hey, let's have a praise moment. And the ones that really are important are probably better served as I don't know. I'm a big believer that like if you know, then it's like but yeah, it's like the celebrating. Ugh,
Ugh, he says.
ugh, yeah.
We're not going to end on the ugh. We're gonna we're gonna have one more question. Just
Yeah. You're like, help me out here, Zweifler.
Right. I don't need your wife calling and saying, why did you let him do that?
Why? Just why?
No, no, no. It's all good. All right. My last and final question in the lightning round is pass a note or leave a message. And by
My
leave a
younger
message, I
self
mean
would have
film
left a message, but pass a note for sure. Yeah. Oh, the energy, the like electricity of not just trying to get away with it, but it's like, you know, yeah, oh, passing a note. And texts, is that it's the lame equivalent now of passing a note?
it's not this. No, come on.
Yeah. Or no, Snapchat, that's the new passing the note.
No, I want the handwriting. I want the thickest note. I want somebody to fold it into like an
Yeah,
origami
it's
shape
got
or a
to be
football.
that football triangle
Yep.
thing. Um, yeah, no, the electricity of that moment, the creation in a concealed way, the getting it across, having to engage intermediaries. Like, hey, Bob, yeah, I don't know, no to era. And then it's like the reaction, which was usually never what you thought it would be. Like if you could get a little smirk out of it, it was like yes. But there was nothing worse than just like
The blank.
the blank read, where it's just sort of like, oh, that note did not go well.
I I will not name the sender, but you know them. Sixth, seventh grade, paper football, playing it, in study hall, back
Mm-hmm.
and forth, back and forth. Finally, sender says to me, open it. And I was like, hmm. And it's like, will you go out with me? So that poor soul had to endure me just like flicking it back, flicking it back.
It's like no, yeah, it's like literally, it's the message is inside the note.
Right.
Yeah.
I said yes. So it ended
Uh,
up.
that's a good one to end on, but that is, I mean, that is the note passing moment that you build up to and hope comes off. Yeah.
Hope for the best. Hmm. Well, John, I have hoped and you have exceeded my expectations for this conversation.
Well, you got a low bar, kid. I mean,
No, no,
no,
this
I
is
want to be on the show for any topic, anytime. Switch it up so that I can come back. We could also hang out in real life. That's that is
see, I knew you were
technically
going to
an
slip that one in there.
option.
IRL John.
Yeah, I know.
Mm, I don't
It's
know.
it's anything is possible these days.
Anything is possible, and I would love that. Awesome. Thank you, John.
Thank you. It was really great to see you. And
Awesome.
yes, we are still basically in middle school.
Yes. Score. Well, that's all for this episode of I'm Here Too. Thank you all so much for joining us. I hope that you enjoyed our conversation. Please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss the next conversation. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.